Funny thing about life? You spend years studying, years surviving internships, years pretending coffee and determination count as a healthy lifestyle, years saying things like, I'll rest after this project, I'll sleep after this deadline, I'll breathe after this meeting. And then one day you realize you have been saying after this for 4 years. Cute, my name is Jocelyn Reed, 29 years old, finance specialist, or former finance specialist now. Apparently life believed I needed character development. 3 days ago, I closed one of the biggest deals in my company's history. A multi-million-dollar partnership, months of preparation, months of presentations, months of staring at spreadsheets so long I started seeing numbers after closing my eyes. Corporate life changes people. You stop asking yourself if you're hungry. You stop asking if you're tired. You start measuring your happiness using emails. No, seriously. 1 email, bad day. 2 emails, stress. 5 emails, maybe it should disappear into the mountains and raise goats. 10 emails, immediate resignation thoughts. I was sitting at my desk reviewing quarterly investment reports when my phone buzzed. A smile immediately appeared. I answered, Hey genius? Sis? I moved the phone away from my ear immediately. Ow, why are you yelling? Guess who scored highest in economics? I smiled. A real smile, not the fake corporate one. The one where you show teeth while your soul quietly resigns. The fake smile, Eli asked immediately. I narrowed my eyes. Excuse me? I knew it. He laughed. You use that smile on me too. I looked offended. I do not. Jocelyn Reed. Jocelyn Reed, I sighed. I financially support you. Eli gasped dramatically. Wow, using money against me? Toxic. You are so dramatic. I'm learning from you. Excuse me, before I could defend myself, Miss Reed? I looked up. My manager stood beside my desk. Expression serious. My smile dropped slightly. Mr. Carson, the board wants to see you. Board? My eyebrows pulled together immediately. Board. Interesting. Because usually the board did not know I existed. Unless... Oh. Wait, no. Were they finally promoting me? I looked around carefully. Nobody looked excited. Nobody smiled. Okay, concerning, still. I grabbed my notebook and stood. Because if life was finally rewarding me for years of suffering, I was willing to forgive it temporarily. 5 minutes later, I stepped into the conference room and immediately knew something was wrong. Nobody smiled. Nobody looked happy. Nobody said congratulations. My stomach dropped. Slowly, I sat down. One board member slid a folder across the table. Miss Reed. I smiled nervously. Good morning. Silence. No greeting back. Oh, interesting. Hostile environment. Love that. We have concluded an internal investigation. My smile disappeared completely. Investigation? Excuse me? We've decided to terminate your employment effective immediately. I blinked. I'm sorry. Small laugh. Terminate? Nobody laughed. I looked down. Emails, transfer records, financial documents, bank statements. My face slowly lost color. No. Evidence suggests confidential information was sold to competitors. My brain stopped, completely shut down, like a computer that suddenly sees smoke. I looked up quickly. What? No, I didn't do this. There has to be a mistake. Then I looked toward the glass door and froze. Daniel, standing outside, smiling. Weeks earlier, come on, Jocelyn, it's one date. No, you act like you're too good for me. Move. His hand wrapped around my wrist. Wrong decision. Very wrong decision. Slap. I gave him a hot slap for touching me. I looked directly at him. Do not touch me again, present. Oh, wow. Everything suddenly connected. I looked at him, then looked back at the documents. Oh, you evil little rat. Unfortunately, I said that part out loud. One board member cleared his throat awkwardly. Nobody denied it. Nobody defended me. Nobody asked questions. Decision made. Case closed. 4 years. Gone. Just like that. I sat there staring at the papers for several seconds, because surely this was one of those moments where someone suddenly laughed and said, We're joking. Congratulations on your promotion. Here's a bonus. Something. Anything. Instead, security will escort you out. Security? I stared at him. Security? I looked around slowly. I'd stayed late for this company, missed birthdays for this company, canceled vacations for this company, answered emails while having food poisoning for this company, and now suddenly I was getting escorted out like I stole office furniture? Interesting. I stood slowly, picked up the folder, picked up my notebook, then looked toward Daniel. He was still standing there, still smiling, actually smiling harder now. Oh wow, he had a very punchable face. I pointed toward him. You know what? Daniel raised an eyebrow. What? I nodded slowly. No. I'll say it later. You are not worth prison. His smile disappeared immediately. Tiny victory. 10 minutes later, I walked out carrying a cardboard box. 4 years of my career, reduced to office supplies. Very humbling experience. Employees looked up as I walked by. Some looked shocked. Some looked uncomfortable. Some immediately looked away. Some had the audacity to suddenly become extremely interested in their computer screens. Those screens must have been fascinating. Outside the building, rain started falling. Of course. I looked up slowly. Seriously? The sky remained silent, rude. I walked toward the bus stop while rain soaked my blazer. Days later, after applying for other jobs, my phone buzzed. Unknown email notification. I frowned. Opened it. Application status rejected. I blinked. Wait. Another one. Application status rejected. Excuse me? I stopped walking completely. No. I opened one. Due to recent concerns regarding your previous employment. My stomach dropped. Opened another. Unfortunately, another. We regret. Another. After review. No. My phone rang. Eli. Immediately, I fixed my face. Because little brothers had this weird ability. They always knew. I answered. Hey, genius. Sis? Pause. You sound weird. Wonderful, see? Exactly what I said. Witchcraft. What do you mean weird? You sound smaller. My chest tightened instantly. Smaller. What kind of description was that? That word stayed inside my chest. Smaller. Because maybe I did feel smaller. A little. Okay, maybe a lot. Jocelyn? I blinked quickly. Are you okay? I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. I'm fine. Then Eli sighed. You know. What? You do this thing. What thing? When you're sad, your voice gets quiet. Oh, I laughed softly. Not because anything was funny. Because suddenly crying felt deeply embarrassing. I'm okay, I whispered. Eli stayed quiet for a second. I got another scholarship interview. I immediately smiled. A real one. Oh my God, Eli. Really? Yeah? Excitement exploded through the phone, and suddenly, for a second, everything else disappeared. Because Eli sounded happy, and Eli deserved happy. See? He laughed. I told you I'd make us rich one day. I smiled. You better. Absolutely. Sis? Yeah? When I become rich. You can finally stop working so hard. For some reason, my eyes burned, trying very hard not to break. Then Eli laughed suddenly. Okay, I have class. Love you, I swallowed. Love you too, call ended. I stared at my phone, then slowly looked up, and for the first time all day, I let myself think it. I was unemployed, blacklisted, almost 30, supporting a younger brother, no backup plan, no savings big enough, no idea what came next, because my life suddenly looked like it was being written by somebody enjoying themselves a little too much. Then my phone buzzed. I looked down. Recommended job opportunity. I frowned. Opened it. Then stared. Nanny. Seeking live in nanny. Competitive salary. Experience preferred. Patience required. I narrowed my eyes. Patience required? Interesting. Why did that sound threatening? Very concerning wording. Then my eyes moved lower. Salary amount $10,000 per month. What? Wow. I blinked. Twice? Excuse me? I almost screamed. I stared at the number again, then immediately opened calculator, because absolutely not. There was no way. No chance. No universe where people paid that much money to watch children. Children barely reached shoulder height. Why were they expensive? Now I should be scared. Children. I stared at the screen again, because maybe I accidentally added an extra 0. Possible. I opened the calculator, typed the number in, looked at it, deleted it, typed it again. Same answer. Really? I sighed and looked back at the job listing. Seeking a leave-in nanny, patience required, flexible schedule, must enjoy working with children. I narrowed my eyes. Must enjoy? Enjoy? That sounded optional. Why was it written like a threat? My phone suddenly buzzed. Eli. Message. Forgot to tell you. Scholarship deadline payment is next week, but don't stress. I'll figure something out too. I stared at the message. Then I looked back at the nanny listing. Then Eli's message. My pride looked at me. I looked at my pride. My pride packed its bags and left. 10 minutes later, I sat inside a coffee shop applying to become a nanny. Life moved fast. The application stared back at me. Do you have experience with children? I frowned. Technically, I helped raise Eli. That counted. Probably. Special skills? I stared at the question, then slowly typed, patient under pressure. Pause. Deleted. Then finally, able to survive difficult situations. Actually, no. That sounded like I fought in wars. Deleted. Typed, responsible and adaptable. Much better. Less concerning. A few moments later, application submitted. I stared at the screen. Oh, I actually did that. 3 days later, 3 whole days. 3 days of rejection emails. 3 days of pretending not to notice my bank account becoming emotionally concerning. 3 days of hearing Eli happily talk about school while I acted like my life wasn't collapsing professionally. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Hello? Miss Jocelyn Reed? Professional voice. Female, calm. I sat straighter automatically. Yes? This is Kensington Residence regarding your application. My eyes widened. Immediately. Oh, very intelligent response. Excellent work, Jocelyn. We'd like you to come for an interview tomorrow morning. Silence, because my brain suddenly stopped cooperating. Interview tomorrow at 10. We'll send the address. Thank you. I stared at my phone, then looked up slowly, then smiled, then immediately stopped smiling. No, calm down. This was just an interview, not a job. Interview. For the first time in days, something tiny appeared inside my chest. Hope. Small, but there. The next morning, chaos. Because apparently the universe woke up and said, "Remember Jocelyn? Let's continue." My alarm failed. The bus arrived late. Coffee spilled on my sleeve. Somebody stepped on my shoe. Then traffic decided to become everybody's personality. I checked the time. 9:54. No, absolutely not. I looked out the bus window nervously. Huge gates slowly appeared ahead. My eyes widened. Kensington Residence. Excuse me, residence? This looked like somebody accidentally built a luxury hotel. Massive gates, perfect gardens, large fountains, even the trees looked rich. How did trees look rich? I didn't know. They just did. I stood outside the gate staring. Then I looked down at the address. I have a finance degree. And somehow this is where life brought me. Then suddenly, the gate opened. I jumped. An older woman in formal clothing stood near the entrance. Miss Reed? I straightened immediately. Yes. She smiled politely. This way, please. One swallowed. Okay, Jocelyn. Smile. Walk normally. Do not embarrass yourself. Very simple instructions. Very achievable. 5 steps later, I walked directly into a fountain. Water splashed everywhere. On my shoes. On my pants. On my dignity. I stared down slowly, then looked up. The woman stared at me. Interesting start. Because apparently my first impression was now. Woman attacks innocent fountain during job interview. The woman beside me blinked once, then politely cleared her throat. Miss Reed? I looked up immediately. Yes. Please pretend that didn't happen. I quickly followed behind while trying to shake water from my shoes discreetly. The mansion somehow looked even bigger inside. Huge crystal chandeliers, marble floors, paintings everywhere, flowers, large windows. Everything looked expensive, not rich. No. Rich was one thing. This looked like rich people's rich. The kind where you accidentally touched something and suddenly owed $30,000. My eyes slowly moved around, then stopped. A vase, very thin. I immediately moved away from it. No, not in this economy. We walked through another hallway, then another. At this point, I had developed a theory. This wasn't a mansion. This was a country. People probably needed maps inside here. I was about to ask if they had emergency exits. The little girl suddenly appeared and gasped dramatically. Oh my God. She looked at her brother standing beside her. She's worse than Nanny 17. Nanny 17? Excuse me? My eyebrows slowly rose. The little boy looked horrified. Worse. The little girl nodded sadly. Nanny 17 only broke a plate. Tiny, disrespectful people. Interesting. For the first time in days, I laughed. Because 2 tiny humans were reviewing me like restaurant critics. Life had officially become unpredictable. Think spoke behind me. So you're the applicant. Everything inside me stopped. I turned around and forgot how breathing worked. Black suit, cold eyes, perfect posture, blonde hair, sharp expression, beautifully terrifying, deeply inconvenient. Because I suddenly understood something. The nanny wasn't the problem. This woman was the problem. This woman looked like she paid taxes on countries. Everything about her looked sharp. Sharp enough to cut somebody emotionally from 6 feet away. The little girl suddenly pointed dramatically. Mom. Mother? I looked at the woman. Then looked at the children. Hold on. Wait. This was Blair Kensington, CEO of Kensington Group? The woman who appeared on business magazines? The woman people called the Ice Queen? Excuse me. No one mentioned any of this. Important details were missing, like, warning. CEO may accidentally cause nervous system failure. You walked into the fountain? Excuse me? Not a greeting, not good morning. Welcome, Miss Reed. The fountain and I had creative differences. I said. Something moved near the corner of her mouth. No way. Was that a smile? Because Blair Kensington did not smile. The internet said so. Lily gasped suddenly. Mason. Mason looked up immediately. What? Mom almost smiled. This way, she said. I followed Blair through another hallway. Then another hallway. At this point, I had fully accepted something. If I got lost in this house, nobody would ever find me again. People would tell stories. She came for an interview and disappeared near the West Wing. Tragic, Blair walked ahead calmly while I followed behind, trying not to stare. Then suddenly, Blair stopped. I almost walked directly into her. Again. Interesting. Very concerning pattern developing today. I stopped myself at the last second, and unfortunately, my balance disagreed with survival. I tilted sideways slightly. Arms moved. Panic activated. Then, warm fingers wrapped around my wrist. Everything stopped. Blair had caught me. I stared at her hand, then slowly looked up. Blair stared back calmly, still holding my wrist. No expression, nothing. Meanwhile, inside my head, interesting because my heart had suddenly decided running a marathon was appropriate. Blair released my wrist. Office? That was it, just office. And immediately started walking again. I quickly followed while pretending my heartbeat wasn't behaving strangely. A few moments later, we stepped into a large office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, dark wood shelves, awards, pictures, books. Everything looked clean, perfectly arranged, suspiciously perfect, like even dust was unemployed here. Blair sat behind her desk, then looked toward me. Sit. I sat immediately, instantly, without discussion, because something about her voice felt like legal instructions. She opened my application slowly. Silence filled the room. I sat there awkwardly, hands folded, back straight, trying to appear employable. Blair looked through several pages. Then finally, finance degree. I blinked. Yes, more page turning. You worked in corporate finance for 4 years. Yes. Then Blair looked up slowly, cold eyes meeting mine directly. So explain something to me. Why is someone with your background applying to become a nanny? Ah, that, right, tiny issue, small life disaster. I looked down briefly, then back up. I need work. Blair stared. No response. Blair looked down at the application again. You support your younger brother. I nodded. Yes. How old is he? 18. He studies on scholarships. Blair closed the file, then looked directly at me. No smile. No expression. Nothing. You were fired. Not a question, a statement, straight to the point. Yes, for selling financial information. I looked at her quietly. I was framed. Blair didn't interrupt, she just watched me. My coworker set me up. Why? Questions I hated. He asked me out. I said no. He didn't take it well. A few seconds passed. Then, you slapped him. I blinked. How do you know that? Blair slightly lifted another page. There was a witness statement. Of course there was, because apparently rich people collected information recreationally. I looked away. He touched me. For the first time, Blair's expression changed. Not much, just enough. Then Lily slowly looked between both of us, then toward Mason. They had been here all along, of course. They are part of the decision maker. Then whispered to her brother, I think serious adult conversation is happening. Mason nodded immediately. Then both children quietly walked toward the door. Sorry? Mason immediately followed. Sorry. Then both walked toward the door again. I watched them leave. then looked toward Blair. They apologized. Blair looked back at me calmly. They know better. Something about that answer stayed with me, because she didn't say, "They're good children," or "They're sweet." She simply said, "They know better," like she expected kindness, like she expected responsibility. I looked down briefly, then smiled a little. Interesting. That explained a lot. A few seconds passed, then Blair spoke again. "If I hire you, you'll be responsible for 2 children who already sent 20 nannies away." I blinked. "Hold on. 20? I stared at her. 20 actual human beings? Blair nodded once. I looked toward the door slowly, then back toward Blair, because suddenly several things made sense. The salary. Oh my God. Am I applying for childcare? Or survival training? The corner of Blair's mouth moved, very small, almost invisible. But I saw it. Then she folded her hands together. "So tell me, Miss Reed." Those eyes landed directly on mine. "Why should I hire you? Oh, right, the interview. I completely forgot." Because somewhere between almost drowning in a fountain and accidentally meeting the most intimidating woman I had ever seen, my brain had quietly stepped outside. Blair stared at me, waiting. Just a billionaire CEO watching me with eyes that probably saw through lies, bad decisions, and weak PowerPoint presentations. I sat up straighter. "Okay, Jocelyn. Think. Use the degree. Use the brain. You paid a lot of money for that brain." I cleared my throat. "Because I work hard." Blair kept staring. No reaction, no nod, no anything. I continued. "I know that sounds like a very boring answer. I know people say that during interviews all the time. But it's true. I've spent most of my life taking care of people. My brother, my family, my work. I don't quit when things become difficult." I let out a small breath. "Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing anymore." The words left before I could stop them. Oops. Wonderful. Very professional, Jocelyn. Excellent interview technique. Tell the terrifying billionaire your life is collapsing. Blair leaned back slightly. "You answered honestly." I blinked. "Yes?" Then Blair looked down at the application again. No expression. Nothing to read. Which honestly should have been illegal. How was I supposed to know what she was thinking? Then suddenly, "Miss Reed." I immediately looked up. "Yes? You were late. You have no nanny experience." I narrowed my eyes slightly. "Okay." I suddenly had concerns. Blair folded her hands. "So logically, why do I feel like hiring you anyway?" Blair looked directly at me, and for some reason my spine straightened automatically again. "I am offering you a 1-week trial." "A 1-week what now?" My eyes widened. "A trial? If the children like you, if you survive, you stay." I blinked. "Hold on. Back up? Survive?" That wording feels threatening. She pressed a button beside her desk. A few seconds later, the older woman from earlier walked in. "Prepare Miss Reed's room." "Wait." I stood up immediately. "Hold on." Blair lifted one eyebrow. "You hired me?" And for the first time since entering this house, a smile spread across my face. Not a big one, just enough, because suddenly, for the first time in days, my chest felt lighter. Outside the office, 2 tiny heads immediately disappeared behind the wall. Interesting. Very suspicious. "Let's make this one quit too," Lily said. "Wow. They wanted me gone so fast. Joke's on them. I am here to stay." The next morning, I woke up feeling amazing. For the first time in days, I had a job. Okay. A trial job. Tiny difference. Still counted. I stretched happily and smiled. "Good morning, Jocelyn." I looked toward the window. Sunlight, birds, peace, hope, wonderful. Maybe my life was finally behaving itself. I got out of bed, walked toward the bathroom, opened the door, and screamed. Ah, spider, huge spider. I jumped backwards so fast I nearly met heaven personally. My heart was fighting for survival. I stared at the creature. The creature stared back. Suddenly, tiny evil laughter from outside my room. My eyes slowly narrowed. Interesting. I walked toward the door, opened it. Lily and Mason immediately froze. Lily blinked innocently. Mason looked at the ceiling. Interesting. Very suspicious behavior. I crossed my arms. The spider. Lily blinked. What spider? The one in my bathroom. Mason looked confused. What bathroom? I stared. They stared. Then suddenly Mason burst out laughing. Lily looked at him in horror. Mason, sorry. He pointed at me while laughing. Her face. Lily stared at him. Absolute betrayal. I looked at both children, then walked back into the bathroom slowly, reached toward the spider, picked it up. Plastic? Plastic? I closed my eyes. Long breath in, long breath out. I walked back outside. Both children looked nervous now, watching, probably expecting, how dare you? That's not funny. Instead, I smiled, then patted Mason's head. Good one. Both children blinked. What? I walked away. Lily looked disturbed. Mason looked at her. Lily, yeah? Why isn't she angry? Lily narrowed her eyes. I don't know. A few hours later, I finished showering, got dressed, walked downstairs, then stopped. Interesting, because suddenly, my shoes had disappeared. Both gone. I looked around, then looked under the couch. Nothing. Under the table, nothing. I turned slowly. Lily sat reading a book. Mason sat beside her drawing. Very innocent faces. Has anyone seen my shoes? Lily slowly looked up. No. Mason shook his head. Nope. Then Mason looked at me. What color were they? Lily slowly turned toward him. Yeah? Stop helping. I looked away immediately because I was dangerously close to laughing. At breakfast the next morning, I picked up orange juice, took one big sip, then I froze. Salt, not sugar, salt inside my drink. I looked down at the cup, then slowly toward the children. Mason suddenly became very interested in his eggs. Lily started drinking water aggressively. I stared, then smiled, then drank another sip. Lily looked confused. Mason looked confused. I looked back at them. What? Mason blinked. You're still drinking it, I nodded. I've had worse. Both children stared. Lily frowned. Worse than salt juice? I looked into the distance. Corporate meetings. Later that night, the children sat in Lily's room. Mason looked nervous. Lily, yeah? Are we doing the right thing? Lily looked down. You know Mommy stays home when everybody leaves. But when people are around, she goes away for months. Silence filled the room. We just want Mommy to love us. Mason looked sad. She does love us. Lily looked toward the door. Then why does she keep leaving? Outside the room, I stood frozen, holding folded laundry, and suddenly, the jokes weren't funny anymore. 2 days. 2 whole days. Lily sat on the couch staring at me. Mason sat beside her staring too. I stared back. They stared harder. This had been going on for 30 seconds. Finally, I sighed. Can I help you two? Lily narrowed her eyes. No. Mason pointed. You're still here. When are you quitting? Aren't you tired? Just leave. Excuse me? I blinked. Last time Nanny 12 left after 1 day. Mason continued. Nanny 6 cried. Nanny 9 screamed. Lily folded her arms. Nanny 15 said we were tiny demons. I looked offended. I pointed at Mason. Okay, first of all. Then pointed at Lily. You are tiny. The jury is still discussing the demon part. Mason gasped. Lily looked betrayed. I walked away before they could defend themselves. Behind me I heard whispering. Very dangerous whispering. I slowly looked back. Both children immediately smiled. Suspicious smiles, the kind that belonged in crime documentaries. I suddenly had concerns. Lunchtime. I sat at the table while Lily and Mason sat unusually quietly. No talking, no arguing, too peaceful, deeply suspicious. I narrowed my eyes slowly. Why are you two acting normal? Mason looked offended. We are normal. Lily nodded quickly. Very normal. I looked at my sandwich, then at them, then back at the sandwich. Interesting, because suddenly I felt like I was in one of those detective movies. I slowly took a bite. Lily stared. Mason stared. I chewed. Both stared harder. I swallowed. Nothing happened. I took another bite. Still nothing. Then another. Then suddenly, I stopped. My throat felt strange. Very strange. I frowned. Wait, hold on. I touched my neck, then swallowed. Again. Something wasn't right. My breathing suddenly became heavier. Very slowly, my eyes widened. No. No, no, no. I looked at the sandwich. Peanut sauce. Peanut sauce? Oh no, oh no. I stood up immediately. The chair fell backward. Lily jumped. Mason froze. I grabbed my throat. Breathing became harder. Lily's face immediately lost color. Nanny Jocelyn? Mason's eyes widened. We didn't know. I pointed toward the kitchen while struggling to breathe. Emergency. Mason suddenly gasped. Mom's epinephrine auto-injector. Both children ran. Actually ran. Tiny feet hitting the floor at full speed. Mason, hurry. I'm trying. A few seconds later, they came flying back. Lily's hands were shaking. Mom said this EpiPen is for emergencies. I took it quickly, hands shaking, breathing shaking, everything shaking. A few moments later, air slowly returned. Small breaths, then bigger breaths, then normal breathing. I sat down slowly, sweat covered my forehead. Lily and Mason stared at me. Both looked terrified. Actually, terrified. Then suddenly, Lily burst into tears. Mason, I told you not to put too much. I didn't know. I didn't know either. Then both looked at me, little faces full of guilt. We're sorry, tiny voice. Very tiny. Lily looked down. We just wanted Mommy to love us. Mason rubbed his eyes. When the nannies come, Mommy leaves. And they were mean, they yelled. They stole from Mommy. They threatened us. We just wanted them to go away. We're good kids. We promise. We're sorry. I stared at both of them, then pulled them closer, one on each side. Tiny arms immediately wrapped around me. Then I sighed. Okay. They looked up hopefully. I narrowed my eyes. But tomorrow, I fight back. Both children blinked. What? Later that night, tiny screams echoed upstairs. Ghosts. Mason ran through the hallway. Lily ran after him. Sticky notes covered every wall, every mirror, every door. The house is cursed. Run. Save yourselves. I sat on the couch holding juice, watching. Mason pointed at me. You did this. I smiled. No evidence. Lily stared. Mason stared. Then suddenly, Mason laughed. Then Lily laughed. Then I laughed. And for the first time, real laughter filled the house. Downstairs. Blair paused near the entrance. She looked toward the sound. And for the first time in a long time, the corner of her mouth lifted. 3 days later, something was wrong. Not bad wrong, confusing wrong, because somehow the house felt different, and apparently I wasn't the only person noticing. I walked downstairs that morning and immediately stopped. Because Lily and Mason were sitting peacefully at the dining table. Peacefully. No screaming, no arguing, no dinosaur court cases, nothing. Just sitting. I narrowed my eyes. Who are you people? Mason looked offended. What? I slowly looked around. Where are the tiny chaos creatures? Lily rolled her eyes. We're eating breakfast. I stared harder. Voluntarily, Mason looked toward Lily, then toward me. Is she insulting us? Lily shrugged. I think she is. I sat down slowly, still suspicious. Because children did not change this fast. No. Something bigger was happening. Later that afternoon, I walked into the playroom carrying folded clothes, then stopped. Mason sat in the middle of the floor. Head lowered, tiny shoulders down. Tiny human looked sad. I walked over slowly. No response. Mason. Yeah. I sat beside him. What happened? He looked down at the dinosaur in his hands. Rex broke. I looked down. One tiny dinosaur leg had snapped off. Oh no. I looked at him. Give me 10 minutes. Mason blinked. What? 10 minutes. 20 minutes later, Mason sat beside me watching. Very closely. No pressure, I said. I'm not pressuring. You're breathing on my face. I'm observing. From my shoulder. I'm helping. I sighed. Children. After a few more minutes, I lifted Rex dramatically. Operation successful. Mason stared. Then his eyes widened. You fixed him. I smiled. Tiny feet immediately launched at me. Suddenly there was a child attached to my neck. Very unexpected. Very warm. Then Mason gasped. Oh no. I blinked. What? Lily is going to be jealous. Excuse me? What? Before I could process that sentence, Lily appeared in the doorway. What? Mason pointed dramatically. Rex survived. Lily stared. You fixed it? I nodded. Thank you. I smiled, no problem. Then Lily immediately looked away. I was beginning to notice something. She acted tough, but every time she got emotional, she looked somewhere else. That evening, I stood in the kitchen cooking. One employee walked by, then stopped, looked at me. Miss Reed? I looked up. Yes. You cook? Yes. The woman looked shocked, actual shock. Homemade food. Excuse me? What kind of question? Then I stopped. Hold on. I slowly looked around, then toward the refrigerator, then toward the cabinets, then toward the ingredients. Then realization hit me. Oh my God. These children had been surviving on chef meals and quick food. No wonder Mason considered cereal dinner. No wonder Lily thought vegetables naturally appeared cut into stars. Interesting. Very concerning. A while later, dinner table. Lily stared at the food. Mason stared at the food. Both stared at me. Then stared at the food again. I looked at them. Why are you looking at me like that? Mason pointed. You made this? Yes. Lily blinked. With your hands. I stared. Whose hands did you think I used? Across the room, Blair had just walked in, straight from work, still wearing a suit, still carrying documents, still looking like she intimidated people recreationally. She stopped, looked at the table, then at the children, then at me. Lily was smiling. Mason was talking excitedly, and for some reason, Blair stayed standing there for a second, watching, just watching. Then she sat quietly, no comment, nothing. Cold woman behavior, expected. A few minutes later, her phone rang. Business call, she stood immediately. I'll be back. Then walked away. Lily's smile dropped, tiny change, but I saw it. Mason looked down too, then suddenly, I understood. Oh, so that was it. They wanted their mother around to have dinner with them. Poor kids. Later that night, I was helping Lily with homework, because apparently little Miss Dramatic inherited stubbornness from somewhere. I know the answer. I looked at the paper. Lily, him? You wrote 7 plus 3 equals 73. You wrote enough No. Lily, no. A few hours later, knock knock. I looked up. The house assistant stood there. Miss Reed. I blinked. Yes. Madam Blair would like to see you in her office. My smile disappeared immediately. Hold on. Pause. Wait. My eyes widened. No. Absolutely not. I stood up immediately. The ghost prank. The assistant blinked. Excuse me? I stared into space. Oh my God. I knew it. I got too comfortable. I knew adults shouldn't encourage children. I knew it. Interesting. Very unfortunate development. I stood outside Blair's office because suddenly my brain had started creating possibilities. Several possibilities. None good. The ghost prank. I pointed at nothing. I knew it. I knew adults should not participate in haunted house activities. I looked toward the ceiling. This is why happiness is dangerous. A nearby employee slowly walked past me, looked at me. Then I immediately looked away. I took a deep breath, knocked twice. Come in. Cold voice. Professional voice. Terrifying voice. I walked inside slowly. Blair sat behind her desk reading something. Did this woman wake up organized? Actually unfair. She looked up. Sit. I sat immediately. Very fast. No discussion. Blair picked up a folder, then looked at me. No expression. Nothing. Very difficult woman to read. I swallowed. Before you say anything... Blair lifted an eyebrow slightly. I continued quickly. The ghost thing was technically educational. I was helping them explore creativity and fear. Blair stared at me for 2 seconds. I blinked. What? Blair looked confused. Actually confused. The ghost prank. Yes. What ghost prank? Oh, no, oh. My eyes slowly closed. Wonderful, deeply embarrassing. I wanted the floor, immediately. Then Blair placed something on the desk. ID card. I blinked. Then looked up. House keys. Car keys. Wait, car keys? Excuse me? My eyes widened. Then Blair slid another document forward. Your trial period is over. I stared. No movement, no breathing, nothing, over. Blair nodded once. You're officially employed. Your salary has been adjusted. Adjusted? I looked down, then froze. Wait. I looked again. No, absolutely not. No chance. No universe. I looked back at her. Is this legal? Blair looked confused. Yes. I looked at the paper again, respectfully, then looked back up. Do you need another child? Blair blinked once, then, very small, the corner of her mouth moved, gone immediately, but I saw it. You'll also receive performance bonuses. Your room has been moved to the children's floor for easier access, and the car is available for personal use when needed. I stared at the keys, then slowly, I think I might cry. Blair ignored that completely. Cold woman behavior. Expected. Then something unexpected happened. Blair looked at me, then quietly said, Thank you. Wait, excuse me? I looked up immediately. What? Blair's eyebrows pulled together slightly. What? I pointed dramatically. You said thank you. Blair stared. You say thank you, Miss Reed. No, seriously. I leaned forward slightly. I didn't think that happened. Blair looked at me. Leave before I change my mind. I stood immediately. Understood. I grabbed the keys, grabbed the ID, grabbed everything, then walked toward the door. Halfway there, I smiled, big smile, because for the first time in what felt like forever, life felt lighter. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. Not because anything was wrong. Actually, the opposite. Things were going right. I walked downstairs quietly. The house looked different at night. Softer, calmer. No tiny footsteps, just silence. I opened the refrigerator, then immediately froze. 6 bottles of water, different brands, different labels, different countries. I blinked. Excuse me? I picked one up. Read the label, then another. Interesting. Because apparently rich people had international water. I was still staring at them when... You're still awake. I nearly threw the bottle, actually nearly threw it. I turned around immediately. Jesus Christ! Blair blinked. I'm Blair. I stared at her. You walk quietly. You were distracted. No. I pointed dramatically. You appeared. Blair walked towards me calmly. Dark sweater, hair down, no suit, no heels, no terrifying CEO armor. This version of Blair looked human. Interesting. I rejected that thought immediately. No. Dangerous thoughts. Blair opened the refrigerator, then looked at me. What are you doing? I lifted the water bottle. I have questions. I pointed at the refrigerator. Why do you have water from multiple countries? Blair looked confused. Different mineral contents. I stared at her. Rich people frighten me. She almost smiled. Again, I saw that. Blair poured water into a glass, then leaned against the counter. A few seconds passed. Then, you called your brother earlier. I blinked. Oh, right. Eli. Blair nodded once. You smiled. I looked down briefly. He's annoying. Blair lifted an eyebrow. He screams into phones. He forgets I financially suffer. Blair watched quietly. No interruption, no reaction. I sighed softly. You know. I looked down at the bottle in my hand. I used to think if I worked hard enough, everything would eventually settle down. I thought adulthood had some magical point where everything finally made sense. I laughed quietly. Turns out adulthood is just paying bills while pretending you're okay. Blair stayed quiet. I continued. I spent so much time worrying. Deadlines. Money. Eli's tuition. My career. My future. A tiny breath escaped. I think I got tired somewhere. A few seconds passed. OMG, Jocelyn, why are you ranting to your boss? Oh my mouth won't be the end of me. Blair looked down at her glass. For a moment, her expression changed. Not much, just enough. The world doesn't stop. I looked toward her. She wasn't looking at me, still staring at the glass. No matter how tired you are. That sentence didn't sound like advice. It sounded personal. Before I could say anything, Blair pushed herself away from the counter. Good night, Miss Reed, then walked away. A few minutes later, Blair walked past the living room, then slowed, stopped, looked back. Lily was asleep, head resting against my shoulder. Mason was holding my arm, tiny fingers still wrapped around my sleeve, and somewhere in the middle of helping them finish a movie. I had fallen asleep too. Blanket halfway hanging off, hair covering part of my face. For a few seconds, Blair just stood there, looking, then slowly walked closer, pulled the blanket over all three of us. Very carefully, very gently. Her eyes moved toward the children, then toward me. Strange, very quiet. The house feels warmer. She stared a little longer, then immediately looked away. Ridiculous. And walked upstairs. Saturday morning, I walked downstairs and immediately stopped. Because Lily and Mason were standing beside the front door wearing matching hats, matching backpacks, matching shoes, matching excitement, tiny synchronized humans. Mason spotted me first. Nanny Jocelyn. Tiny feet immediately attacked. Again, I looked down. Good morning to you too. Lily crossed her arms dramatically. You're late, I blinked. Late for what? My eyes moved toward Blair, who stood beside the door reading something on her tablet. I narrowed my eyes. Why do I suddenly feel like everyone knows something except me? Mason gasped. You forgot. Excuse me? Forgot what? Lily looked disappointed. Amusement park day? Wait, what? I slowly turned toward Blair. Today? Blair looked up calmly. Today. You could have informed me. You were sleeping. Excuse me? I looked offended. So your solution was silence. Yes. Right. Of course. Cold woman behavior. Expected. 20 minutes later, I sat in the car staring outside dramatically, because apparently rich people had cars where seats moved by themselves. I pressed one button. Seat moved. Pressed another button. Seat became warm. I looked around suspiciously. I pointed at the seat. Why is my chair heated? Blair looked up from her tablet. For comfort. I stared. Wow, my apartment doesn't even love me this much. Mason laughed. Tiny trader. 1 hour later. Chaos. Children screaming, people everywhere, bright lights, games, music. Mason immediately pointed somewhere. Roller coaster? Lily pointed somewhere else. Cotton candy. I pointed somewhere too. Bench. I need emotional preparation. A few minutes later, Blair stood beside me watching the children, hands folded, calm face. I looked at her. Have you always looked this serious? Yes. I blinked. Even as a child? Yes. I stared. Impossible. Blair looked at me. I continued. No child comes out looking like they have mortgage payments. Mortgage payments? I nodded. Taxes too. You look like you were born filing paperwork. For 2 seconds. Blair looked offended. I definitely saw it. Oh my God. I am finally losing my job, my mouth. Then Lily suddenly ran over. Mom. Blair looked down immediately. Yes, come with us. I'm fine here. Lily frowned. No. Tiny hands grabbed Blair's arm. Please. Mason joined immediately. Please. Blair looked trapped. Then slowly, those cold eyes moved toward me. Very suspicious. Why are you looking at me? I smiled. Oh no. No. I stepped backward. No. Blair narrowed her eyes. Nanny Jocelyn. I pointed dramatically. Do not involve me. Too late, because suddenly tiny hands grabbed me too. 10 minutes later, I was sitting beside Blair on a small ride. Mason in front. Lily beside him. Children laughing. Music everywhere. Wind hitting my face. I looked toward Blair. She looked terrified. Actually terrified. I blinked. Wait, are you scared? No, Blair, no. The ride suddenly dropped. Ah. I slowly turned. Blair slowly looked at me. I dislike you. I stared, then burst out laughing. Actually laughing, real laughing. And for some reason, Blair kept staring. Not cold staring, not CEO staring, just watching. Watching me laugh, watching the children laugh, watching all of us. Then her eyes moved toward Mason, then Lily, then me again. A small breeze moved through her hair. The children were arguing over cotton candy. I was still laughing. And suddenly, for the first time in a very long time, Blair felt something strange inside her chest. Not love, not attraction, just Lightness, a tiny feeling. Small, warm, quiet. I'm happy right now. Then she blinked. Wait. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. Again. Interesting. Because apparently my brain had started developing trust issues with peace. Very rude. I rolled to one side, then the other side, then stared at the ceiling. Nothing. No sleep, no miracle. I sighed and sat up. Okay, water. People always drank water when they couldn't sleep. No idea why. Maybe water had secret powers nobody talked about. I walked downstairs quietly. The mansion looked different at night. The huge rooms felt softer somehow, less intimidating. Less CEO lives here, more home. I walked into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, picked a bottle of water, read the label. Water from Norway? I looked around. Why is your water traveling internationally? You're still awake. I nearly launched the bottle into another country. I spun around immediately. Jesus Christ! Blair looked up from where she sat beside the window. Hello to you too. I placed a hand over my chest. No. I pointed dramatically. No. You cannot keep doing that. Blair blinked once. I live here. That isn't the point. I narrowed my eyes. You move like a highly attractive ghost. My brain stopped. Oh my God, this mouth of mine. I stared at Blair, then immediately pointed at the air. Sorry, I meant tall. A tall ghost. Wonderful. Excellent recovery. 10 out of 10. Blair looked at me for 2 seconds, then looked back down at the wine in her hand. She almost smiled. I walked over slowly, then stopped. Wait. I stared. You drink wine? Blair looked at the glass, then at me. Yes. I blinked. Interesting, because I genuinely thought Blair survived on discipline and intimidation. I pointed at the glass. I'm shocked. Why? I looked at her seriously. You look like somebody who drinks responsibility. Her mouth twitched. There, I saw it. I sat beside her. Not too close. Not too far. Just enough. Outside the window, the city lights looked beautiful. Cars moved below. Everything felt quiet. Peaceful. For a while, nobody spoke. Then I noticed something. A picture frame sat nearby, turned slightly away. Interesting. Curiosity immediately woke up. Dangerous. Because curiosity and I had a complicated history. I looked toward it. Before I could look properly, Blair reached over calmly and turned it completely down. Oh, I blinked, then looked away. Message received, loud and clear. A few moments passed, then unexpectedly she said, My parents had expectations. I looked toward her. Her eyes stayed on the window. They had plans, for the company, for me. Her fingers moved slightly around the wine glass, and eventually, a quiet breath escaped. I became one of those plans. Something inside my chest tightened, because suddenly, that sentence felt heavy. I stayed quiet. No jokes, no interruptions, just listening. My husband wasn't a bad man. She smiled faintly. He was kind. Another pause. We were friends. Then her expression changed slightly, almost sad. But friendship and love are different things. The room became quiet again. I looked at her carefully and said, Did you know? Blair looked at me. Knew what? I moved my hand vaguely. Excellent. Brilliant communication. Things, tiny gesture, you know. Blair stared, then understood. Oh. She looked away again. Silence stretched for a moment, long enough that I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, there were things I understood about myself before other people did. I looked at her. Like what? Oh, who I loved. Oh, that was it. Just, oh. I looked at her, then shrugged lightly. Okay. Blair slowly turned. Okay. I blinked. What else was I supposed to say? I looked at her seriously. You still look terrifying. Then suddenly, a soft laugh escaped. Actual laughter. Not a tiny almost smile. Not a breath. A real laugh. Small, but real. I froze. Very slowly, I pointed. No. Blair narrowed her eyes. Know what? I stared dramatically. You laugh? Oh my God. I stood up. I just witnessed a historical event. Blair pointed toward the chair. Sit down. I sat immediately. No resistance. Survival remained important. Then after a while, Blair looked back toward the city. The house is always loud. I looked at her. Employees, meetings, calls, schedules. Small pause, children. Funny enough, I've never felt a place this full and this empty at the same time. Ouch, that one hurt. That one really hurt. Because suddenly, I wasn't looking at Blair Kensington, CEO, billionaire, ice queen. Nothing like that. I was looking at a woman who had been alone for a very long time. I looked at her, really looked at her, then smiled softly. You know, Blair looked toward me. You're not as cold as people think. Blair stared at me, no movement, no words, just staring. Because maybe nobody had said that to her in years, and for some reason neither of us looked away. Saturday afternoon, chaos. Good chaos. The kitchen looked like it had survived a small war. Flour on the counter, chocolate on the table. Mason somehow had frosting on his forehead. I still had questions about that one. Lily stood on a stool wearing a tiny chef hat. Tiny chef confidence activated, hands on hips, very serious face. I think I have natural talent. I looked down at the cookies. Lily, yes, the cookies are black. She looked offended. They're dark brown. Mason looked over. No. Those are ancestors. I immediately turned around because I was dangerously close to laughing. Lily gasped dramatically. Mason. What? You said support family members. I support honesty. Tiny betrayal across the room. Blair sat at the kitchen island reading documents, or pretending to read documents, because every few seconds, her eyes quietly moved up, toward us, toward me, then back down. Interesting. Very sneaky behavior. I saw it. Lily. I pointed toward the mixing bowl. Slowly. Tiny chef nodded seriously. I understand. She absolutely did not understand, because 2 seconds later, Mason stopped touching things. I was observing. With your fingers? I'm curious. I sighed. Children. Wonderful creatures. Very stressful creatures. Then suddenly, everything happened too fast. Lily reached toward the kettle beside the counter. Maybe she wanted to move it. Maybe she wanted more water. I don't know. I only saw one thing. It slipped. Time stopped. The kettle tilted. Hot water spilling downward. Toward Lily. Lily. I moved before thinking. Pulled her backward immediately. Then pain, sharp, burning. Ah! The sound escaped before I could stop it. The kettle crashed. Everything froze. I stared at my arm. Then my shoulder. Oh no. No. That hurt. That really hurt. Lily's face immediately lost color. Nanny Jocelyn. Mason's eyes widened. Then the chair behind us scraped loudly. Jocelyn. Not Miss Reed. Not formal. Not cold. Just Jocelyn. Blair was already beside me, hands grabbing my shoulders carefully, eyes scanning everywhere. Look at me. I blinked. Look at me. I looked up. For the first time since I met Blair, she looked scared. And that is where we leave you tonight. I know. We will be back very soon with the next episode, and I promise you, it only gets deeper from here. If this episode got you, if you felt something, drop your favorite moment in the comments below. I read every single one, and if you are watching this for the very first time, welcome. Welcome to the family. Subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you never miss what happens next, because nothing is ever what it seems, and nobody falls the way these two will fall. Until next time, stay brave, stay curious, and remember, the most powerful love in any world is the kind that chooses you back. See you in episode 2.